Hi, this is Nick Zigich. We're here at the Arcadia Association of Realtors. We have our commercial committee mixture, like every month. Today's speaker is Penman, and the city manager of City of Arcadia, and he's going to bring the update on everything that's happening in Arcadia. So, listen in.
We're ready to go. We've got the line that's going through all these towns. Cities have all developed station plans with lots of development around them, provide mixed use and things, and yet there always is a reason why it can't move ahead. But we do believe at this point that it's close to being ready to move ahead and start construction this year. There's still a couple of them. And of course, we will have a station here. Now, our station is proposed to be along the current alignment of the railroad tracks, just east of First Avenue. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, why that? Because you have that nice flat area between Santa Anita and First, and some of which is already owned by the MTA. Well, the reason is because the City Council was concerned with the 35,000 plus cars a day that go up and down Santa Anita, that it would create a real traffic problem. So, I think it was about 2.5 years ago, the council put on the ballot a measure to see if the voters would support a bond issue, pay for a bond issue, to build a grade separation at Santa Anita. In other words, raise the tracks. And the voters voted for that by more than 70%. So, with the grade, the bridge essentially over Santa Anita, it's impossible to drop that line down and have a station at the grade, at ground level, before you get to First Avenue, because it would be like this and like that. So that, engineering-wise, won't work. So in order to provide the transition for the train to cross Santa Anita on a bridge, it has to drop down and it'll reach grade just before it reaches First Avenue, and so the station will be east of First Avenue. We looked at having an elevated grade, or having an elevated platform, so like we could still have the station between First and Santa Anita, and that added another $20 million to the cost, because you'd have to build that elevated platform all the way down, and, you know, just logistically it wasn't going to work. So because of the tightness of that space, the parking structure, which will be 2 levels at grade and 1 level above, will be west of First Avenue. So it's a little bit of a, kitty corner arrangement, if you will. It'll back up to the REI property, and there's a few properties in there that will have to be acquired, and then they'll cross over First Avenue, cross First Avenue to go to the station. If that's the example, and someone once asked maybe, why don't we lower the roadway and take the bridge at grade? Well, it creates a lot more technical difficulties, because all the infrastructure, we have a 36-inch water line in there, all the utilities, we've underground all the utilities on Santa Anita. And then the more important part to the businesses, it would eliminate access to the businesses on Santa Anita, because the roadway would be down here and the businesses would be up here if you took the roadway down. So, I don't know if you're a fan of In-N-Out, but you wouldn't be. You would not have access to In-N-Out or Goldstein's or Fastest. The city's going through a general plan update right now, and one of the areas we're focusing on as a special study is the downtown. Looking at, with the idea that transit's going to be coming in there, what do we want downtown to look like? What's the vision? Has it going to change, and how much do we want it to change? And Arcadia is a fairly conservative city in terms of its growth. So the council, we had a committee, they made some recommendations to the Planning Commission, City Council, and the draft general plan is about ready to come out for public comment. We're looking at some changes in the downtown. I would say not as dramatic as some of the other cities, and this is not a criticism. Each city has to define its own vision, but like they're looking at mixed use, but not 80 to 100 units per acre type of thing. Our zone would allow for up to 50 units per acre, but it would have a height limit of 40 feet. So we are looking at allowing some residential, probably in the rate somewhere in the 350 to 375 units would be allowed in the downtown under a mixed-use scenario. You see a lot of that maybe in Pasadena. You've seen projects up probably in Monrovia that are just right off of either Onville or maybe I think it's in Colorado. They've got some residential in there. And so we are looking at some residential, but not at those densities. It's something a little less dense. That's in the general plan. From a commercial standpoint, some of the properties, or I'd say most of the commercial properties, will see an increase in their floor area ratio. Arcadia has a fairly low floor area ratio. We call it, FAR. It's 0.5. That means, if you got a 10,000 square foot parcel, you can put a 5,000 square foot building on the property. We're recommending, in most cases, an increase to 1. So if you got a 10,000 square foot property, you could build 10,000 square feet. But, of course, the trick is you still have to park it to code, you still have to have landscaping and other things. So you have to make that equation work. It's a little tougher on small parcels, quite frankly. But roughneck, it's a saga. That's all I can say. We were unable to acquire rods. We were also unable to acquire the Elks property. And so Roughneck has announced he's going to leave Arcadia and go back to Pasadena. I don't know if that's actually going to happen. A good retailer. He's a great retailer in terms of sales tax. He doesn't generate a lot of traffic. And, it's a great use for us. So we'll see how that plays out. I mentioned the vacant Westerner site. There was a proposal for market rate senior housing there, but when the economy went bad, that project no longer penciled out. It was about 70 units, and it had 2 levels of underground parking. So you can imagine how expensive that would be, and then it just went away, and that's how the current owner acquired it. Santa Anita Racetrack. It's gone through a bankruptcy proceeding. The owner, Magna, which is controlled by a man named Frank Stronach, essentially, it'll be transparent, it'll be the same owner. Now, needless to say, horse racing is in kind of a state of flux, and it's not on life support, but it's certainly in trouble. Just to give you a comparison of numbers, about 22 years ago, the Santa Anita Racetrack generated about $2.5 million for the city, just in gambling. We get a small percentage of what's bet on the handle. We get 1/3 of 1%. Doesn't sound like a lot, but 25 years ago, it was $2.5 million. Today, based on the same handle, 1/3 of 1%, it'll maybe be $1 million. To address that, the owner, Magna, entered into an agreement with Rick Caruso. Some of you may be familiar with Rick Caruso. He's, he did the Americana on Grand. He did the Grove over in the next to the Farmers Market. He's a very successful developer, and he proposed an 800,000 square foot project on the racetrack property in the south parking lot. That was approved by the city and challenged by Westfield, the ownership, and a citizens group, which I think the citizens group, many of them are well-meaning Arcadia residents, so I'm not being critical of them, they have concerns. But the citizens group staff and everything was funded essentially by Westfield. There will be a measure on the ballot, a mail ballot in June on the lighting district. And if you're a resident or a property owner, or you know property owners in Arcadia, they will be getting a ballot in June asking them to whether they will vote in favor of the lighting district. Because the average, for example, the single-family home that has lights on their street would pay $27 a year. If your business it depends on the size of your property. But if you purchase that property, probably in the last 5 to 10 years, your assessment will likely go down because it was based on the valuation of the property, not the benefit. But it's a critical issue to the city because if it's not approved, I don't think the council is prepared to say, well, we're going to turn the lights off. That's too much of a public safety issue. But it means we're going to have to find $420,000 in our budget. And we think that, for $27 a month for a business, not business, but a resident, and it's about 2/3 of that, or maybe $18 a month per apartment unit. The difference, though, is the apartment owner gets to vote because they're on the property. The only other thing is I was asked by my staff to remind people or make the announcement that our Mayor's Community Breakfast is coming up on April 8th over at Santa Anita Park in the Front Runner Room. And there are speakers from the track, Mike Smith, a famous jockey who happens to be the jockey for Zenyatta. If you follow horse racing, he's probably the best, best horse around today. Won again, even though Rachel Alexander lost. Well, Mike might be running with Zenyatta at that Arkansas race, so he's scheduled to speak. He may not. But also there's a fellow named David Milch. I think he's a producer. He did NYPD Blues and some other stuff. Really a great guy. He's filming an HBO show over at the racetrack now, so he's agreed to be a speaker. So it should be a fun event. So you can get tickets from the city manager's or mayor's office if you'd like. I think it's $15. And the money goes to the campership program for needy kids. So